Welcome to Suzanne's studio. I'm Suzanne Barnett, your host. Tonight, I am so honored to present a young woman who is dedicated and beloved. This young woman is Cantor K. Greenwald. Cantor K. is the Director of Placement for the American Conference for Cantors. And not only that, Kay is an opera singer who lived in Vienna for a couple of years. Not only did she sing there, but she sang throughout the whole country of Austria. I mean, I could do a much longer introduction, then you wouldn't have anything to say or sing. Cantor K, I really am so pleased to have you.
I'm very happy to be here. Thank you.
First of all, would you tell me and the audience, what is a cantor?
A cantor is a member of the Jewish clergy. Today, cantors are ordained. That is, cantors people who call themselves cantor should be ordained cantors. There are some people who call themselves cantor who are not. We don't need to go into that this evening. But cantors are ordained clergy. They have attended seminary for 5 years, and they function very much in a clergy role in the synagogue, leading services, doing pastoral work, officiating at life cycle events, weddings, funerals, those kinds of things. A lot of education. Cantors particularly work with children, mostly in preparation of bar and bat mitzvah, but not only. And cantors have special musical knowledge. This is the cantor's bailiwick, as it were. Cantors have studied Jewish music history and the sort of canon of Jewish music, going back as far pretty much as anybody can remember, and then coming right up into the present and with the music that's being written right now in the camping movement and things like that.
So are there cantors in other religions?
I believe the Catholic Church has cantors, but I am not sure that, I don't think they're clergy. I think they are people who lead music in the service.
But this is different in Judaism.
It is, and the cantor is actually not the Hebrew word. The Hebrew word is chazan, and chazan comes from the word for vision, like having vision or being visionary.
Why in the world, this beautiful young woman, I always refer to you, Cantor K, how come you wanted to become a cantor, and you're an opera singer?
Well, I was an opera singer.
Yeah.
So I was an opera singer. When I was a little girl, I thought I wanted to be a rabbi. So I actually grew up in an intermarriage. My mother was not Jewish, and my father had left Germany in 1939 when he was 14 years old, and actually left very late in 1939. So he was able to escape with my grandparents and his sister. And they came to this country, and they were, they were all doing things to support themselves in this country. They weren't allowed to bring very much with them. My grandfather was a doctor. He went back to do a residency program and had to sort of retrain in order to practice here in the United States. And so they actually never affiliated with a congregation. My father did not have very fond feelings for the organized Jewish community in the United States. He felt like he was not treated well when he arrived from Germany as a teenager. So he grew up. He met my mother. My mother was actually very close friends with my father's sister, my aunt, the woman who became my aunt. And they were not affiliated with a congregation, but they were very, very pro-Israel. It just had a very important place in their heart, and they were big contributors to Israel, and they gave me a great love for the state of Israel growing up. And somehow I picked up on this idea of rabbi as Jewish leader. So I am not as young as you keep saying I am. I'm actually middle-aged. And when I was a little girls did not grow up to be rabbis or cantors for that matter, although I'd never even heard of a cantor when I was a little girl. So I had this image of being a rabbi, and I told people that that's what I wanted to do, and they would kind of pat me on the head and say that's very sweet, because they knew that little girls didn't grow up to be rabbis. And in the meantime, I sang. I sang before I could talk, really. I sang with my father. And I sang and sang and sang. And when I went to college, I had a voice teacher, and I sang, and she said, "Honey, you should sing." And so she sent me off to graduate school in music. And from there, I went to Europe, and I got a lot of work, and I made some really good money, and I did a lot of singing. And in the meantime, I fell romantically in love with my husband, who had been a good friend in college. And I came back to the United States so that I could marry him. I knew I didn't want to raise Jewish kids in Austria. And I came back to the United States to be with him. And he said that he wanted the cantor who officiated his bar mitzvah to officiate at the wedding. And I said, great. And we went and sat down with her. And this light bulb went off in my head, and I thought, oh, that's what I'm supposed to be doing. And so I met with her privately, and she said, well, you have to go to seminary, and you have to go to the Hebrew Union College, and so that's what I did.
What a story, Cantor K. So it's just in your soul.
It is in my soul.
It's in your soul. And we're going to hear a song, not right now, because we need to continue talking. One of the questions that I wanted to ask you is the role of the cantor in today's synagogue, because it's Reform Judaism that you're with, right?
Right, although I
Okay.
think it's not so dissimilar in the conservative movement.
Really?
Mm-hmm. I think they're fairly similar, the role of the cantor.
I see. Well, what is the significance of the role?
Well, so I don't know if you're asking about historically moving forward. Today's cantor
Yeah.
is very much involved in the whole life of the congregation. You'll have cantors in some congregations give sermons on Friday night, very involved in adult education, in, again, teaching children, a very big part of the cantor's job, visiting people in the hospital, officiating at weddings. I will be officiating at a wedding in a few months for the son of some very dear friends. I'm looking forward to that. And funerals, those kinds of things as well. So very much a part of the congregation and the life of the congregation. The music has a very, very long history. The music that we know for sure goes back. We know, there's certain melodies that we call Misinai. They are really not Misinai. They are probably, some of them 1,000 years old. The Torah chanting is probably older than that, but it's been sort of modified through the ages. And so cantors are sort of the stewards, as it were, of this music history and this musical knowledge, from everything that we know going back as far as we know it, and then coming forward.
It sounds like a cantor has even a more important job than the rabbi. I shouldn't have said that.
I don't know that that's
true. I hope
true.
no rabbis
Right.
watching. No, but I didn't know that you had that many roles. Now, quickly, we have to go over to the fact that you're now the big mocker you have such a prestigious job as director. this new position, or the last couple of years.
Yes. Although I do want to say that the rabbi's role and the cantor's role are pretty similar in the congregation. So the rabbi does all those things also, but the rabbi has studied certain text much more in depth than, as cantors we study music and liturgy, the prayer book, and the rabbis study much more Talmud and Midrash and those kinds of texts. So we sort of have our areas of specialty. Often the leadership role in the synagogue is, the primary leadership role is the rabbi, and the cantor will be a co-clergy with that person, or sort of the first lieutenant, as it were.
I see.
So that is often the model in the synagogue in North America.
I see. And
not always, but often.
I forgot to mention that you have been associated with Congregation
Beth
Am in Los Altos Hills.
Right, where I am Cantor Emerita.
Yes.
So
you know something? I think this would be the perfect time for you to sing your song. Okay?
Thank you.
So
yes.
I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you. Thank you.
This song is sort of a love song to God. The composer is Sharona. The text comes from the Sabbath liturgy. It's traditionally called Anim Zmirot. She has named it Ki Elecha. She has picked up on the yearning aspect of the text. I weave pleasant verses and make songs for you because my soul longs for you, for your love. Anim Zmirot v'shirim erog ki elecha nafshi ta'arog ki elecha nafshi ta'arog nafshi chamda b'tzel yadecha ladat kol rasodecha ki nafshi ta'arog ki elecha nafshi ta'arog midei dabri bichvodecha Homer libi el dodecha, Homer libi. Al kein adaber becha nichbadot v'shimcha achabed b'shirei didot ki elecha nafshi ta'arog ki elecha nafshi ta'arog.
Cantor K, I just am amazed, and I don't know why I should say that, but you're so talented. Your voice is absolutely gorgeous.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Really? And you have to know another language, Hebrew.
Yes.
Is that a very difficult language?
I actually think not. I would say not compared to German, for example. I think German, which I grew up speaking German. But even growing up speaking German, I really had to study German grammar closely to really be able to speak it like a native. It's rusty now, so I would never presume now that I speak like a native, but I do try. I listen to books in my car in German. But grammatically, I think German, for example, is much more complicated. That being said, there's another alphabet involved. The way words are put together is very different in Hebrew. There are sort of cases and things that you don't have in English. But overall, I found it to not be such a difficult language. Now, all of that being said, I am much better at reading Hebrew and understanding it than I am at speaking Hebrew. Unfortunately for me, when I read Hebrew, I tend to simultaneously translate into English, which is different from the way I read German and do German, because I'm thinking in German when I speak
When you
German.
speak
Right,
it,
right.
yeah.
So it's different. So, but yes, you have to understand the words on the page. You have to understand the prayers, or you can't bring meaning to them.
Of course. Now, being director, what is that like?
So I'm the director of placement.
Right.
So what I do is help congregations find cantors, and cantors find congregations. And I do this for the Reform movement throughout North America. So when a cantor is looking for a new pulpit for whatever reason, either they're newly ordained and looking for their first pulpit as an ordained cantor, or they have been in a pulpit and for whatever reason they want to move on. Maybe it wasn't the right community for their family. Maybe their spouse is being transferred. Whatever the reason is, and the cantor wants to move to a different congregation, then the cantor contacts me, and I work with the cantor to help them find a new congregation. Similarly, when a congregation decides that they're going to hire a cantor for the first time, or their cantor is retiring, or their cantor is leaving, they contact me, and I help them find a new cantor. So I'm sort of a go-between. I don't really make matches per se, but I do put people in contact together and facilitate that process for both sides. And that's really mostly for the Reform movement. I work with a few unaffiliated congregations, but it's mostly for the Union for Reform Judaism.
Well, this is, I know for sure, it's very prestigious. But I have to have some, conflict in our conversation. You told me that you really miss the kids.
I do. So I was the cantor at Congregation Beth Am of Los Altos Hills. And when my son was in junior high school, I needed to step back from the pulpit for a few reasons. And so I did. And there are definitely things about being a congregational cantor that I miss very, very much. And the thing I miss the most is the kids. When you work with a 12-year-old child, 12 and a half, 13-year-old child, it's really an amazing age. In a group, they can be really tough. But one-on-one, they'll open up in a way that they don't when they're in the group. And they're just starting to figure out their own opinions, who they are. They're starting to really understand abstractions and ideas in ways that they didn't before. It's a very exciting age developmentally. And to be able to work with a child at that stage and potentially make a lasting impact, hopefully very positive on their life, it's profoundly meaningful. And I miss it.
Don't you have a story or two?
I do.
Tell.
So my very first bar bat mitzvah student, my very first student pulpit. So I'm still in school. I'm a student. And I'm getting ready for the first time to work with this. In this case, it was a bat mitzvah student. And I'm a little nervous, and, you know, school is new, and here I am doing this. And this little girl bursts into the door of my office. My student pulpit was great. It had a congregation. The congregation had an office for me, actually, which was wonderful. Not all student cantors are so lucky. She bursts through the door and says, Cantor K, do you think anybody could have seen that burning bush, or only Moses? And I thought, oh, I have chosen the right career. It was just such a great moment.
Yeah.
That same year, there was a young man who had some learning differences. He had some emotional issues. And a few months before his bar mitzvah, his father went out into the backyard and took a gun and shot himself. And I think the boy actually was the one who found him. And it was incredibly painful for everybody in the community. Of course, incredibly painful for this boy and his mother. And the mother allowed me to be in touch with the boy's therapist, because he had been in some therapy already, but after this really needed to be working with someone. And the therapist, you know, I talked to him, and he said, you know, he's never going to be able to do this. He'll never be able to become bar mitzvah. He has too many issues already. This was too profoundly horrible in his life. And I said, you know, if he doesn't, he doesn't. But I'll just keep working with him, and you never know. And I don't remember if it was 3 months later or 4 months later, there he was standing on the bima, reading from the Torah, and the incredible pride and sense of accomplishment and the joy in that space, the joy in the community. It was really incredible. And to feel like you've really touched someone and made a difference in their lives in that way there's nothing like it.
What a story. You must have really, really had to work with him, and
there was a lot of time,
be
but
so
it was
supportive.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It was.
Well, I mean,
wonderful.
That is certainly a thrilling story, really. I mean that. We just have a few more minutes, Cantor K. And what do you see? We could do a whole other show on this, but what do you think about what's happening with Judaism in 2 minutes?
In 2 minutes?
Yeah.
Well, things are definitely changing. And the younger generation, our children, do not have the same attachment to authority or hierarchy, nor do they have the same sense of organizational affiliation and that kind of thing that I think my generation had, and certainly the generations that came before me. And so I think that we can't just assume that people will join because they always have. And so I think we need to really work with our young people and show them what's positive and wonderful and exciting about Judaism. And I think that there are sort of programs and movements afoot to do that in effective ways. I expect that things will look very different in 100 years from how they look now. And there may be things about Judaism that are different. One of the reasons that we've survived as long as we have is because we've been able to change with the times and grow with the times and adapt to the times. We haven't tried to just freeze ourselves into one way of being. If we had done that, I think we would have died out with so many other ancient civilizations. But here we are. And so I believe we still have that capacity for adapting and learning from what's going on around us and taking what is best and applying it to our own lives and our own community and moving that forward. So I believe that things are changing, but I'm also very positive about the Jewish future.
Well, if anybody has any influence You are the one, my goodness.
Thank you.
You are
That's very-
so
very sweet,
articulate.
Suzanne.
You're so passionate. You're so, and not only that, but you're so talented. Would you come back
you.
another time? Sometime, no, I mean that. Cantor,
Oh, I'm really honored. I'm really honored, Suzanne. Thank you. This has been very fun for me to get to talk about myself a little bit.
Good,
And,
good.
I'm
No, but
Thank you.
sometimes if I have an outstanding guest, they're not on just once, believe me. So I would be really thrilled to have you back, and I thank you so much. And continuing, you have to keep singing. I assume you do that.
I sing.
You sing, do you sing in the shower?
I do not sing in the shower, but I sing in my lessons, and I sing at home, and I sing. Beth Am does every 2 years does a concert, and I sing in that concert. It's coming up this year on April 26th.
Oh, April 26th at Beth Am. Okay, we can say that because the show's going to be all over the world, this show, of course. Thank you again.
Thank you. It's been an honor. Thank you, Suzanne.
With all my heart, really.
Thank you.
And with all my heart and soul, what would I do without my crew? We have, and this crew, we've really been together a long time, and everything is voluntary here. I so appreciate you guys. I send you my love, and hope this continues a long time. Plus the fact that my audience, my viewers, are very important, and I can't wait to see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everybody.
Thank you so